Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters, your source for all things business. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at Ask Adam Torres. Keep up with our book releases and all that other good stuff. And if you'd like to apply to be on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Become a Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Scott Kim on the line, and he is CEO over at RocketReach. Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh man, so one of my favorite topics today we're going to be getting into, and that we're going to talk about data. So if anybody's been watching this show for a while, you know we love talking about data. And I like your angle on this and what you present and what you're doing over at RocketReach. So where you make a big point to say, well, it's not just data, it's the quality of the data that matters. And so we'll get into that, and we're going to make some distinctions there, and what's good data, what's bad data, what we should be focusing on, let's say. But maybe before we go over there, let's start with your background and really just how you got started on this path.
Yeah, so I mean, if I take it back to the beginning, I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and my parents were immigrants. They moved here from South Korea, and like many other immigrants, they actually started their own business, and they owned a small retail store. And so, kind of the first time I got to manage a business was actually managing that store. When I was really young, I just would handle the stock. But then as I got older, I got to deal with customers and work with customers, and then ultimately, I got to work the cash register. That was a big day for me. And then long term, when my parents would go on vacation, they would leave me and my sister to help mind the store, and we would do the books and the accounting, kind of everything, all encompassing of managing the business overall.
Wow.
So
that's an amazing story. Hold on. First off, I have to ask, like, what was that like growing up in that type of entrepreneurial family? I mean, it sounds like it was work, but it sounds like, man, what a foundation you have.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most interesting things about the business was that it was actually a beauty supply business, and so it was a whole bunch of products that I never used myself, but had to sell them on the floor to a lot of our customers, and I really saw the power of a good product, right?
Wow.
When you have a great product there, the customers come back over and over and over again, and if you don't build a good product, they're not going to come back and repeat. And so I think that was like kind of the core of the foundation. And then on top of that, to be quite honest, my parents, they worked 6 days a week from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day.
Wow.
And seeing them kind of putting in that kind of time and effort into managing their store, I think has a lot of effect on me as well. I've seen the value of hard work, and I think that's an important factor in terms of having a foundation for your career.
Man, that's what a great story. And I love to hear a successful like immigrant story, just story in general, somebody, coming and making something and creating a business and really adding long-term value to their community, to the people around them. I mean, just for those relationships. I mean, I'm sure some of those clients of your parents were there for years and years, and they watched you and your sister grow up, I'm sure.
Yeah. I think a lot of them see me go through the different phases of life.
Of course.
And they were probably just as proud to see me go to college as my parents were.
Amazing. Let's take us further down this journey. So I know. So when did tech and when did all this stuff come to play?
So I went to college, and of course I went in pre-med because my parents wanted me to be a doctor. But I quickly realized that technology was the place I wanted to be. I took a couple of computer science classes very early on in college, and I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed the kind of the process of building and fixing things. And so I ended up majoring in computer science. And I was in right kind of in the middle of the Bay Area, which is kind of like center point for technology, and Silicon Valley, as a lot of people call it. And that was, I think, a great learning experience to see so much of an entrepreneurial attitude around starting businesses and changing people's lives with great products. And so that kind of drove me into technology. And my first job out of college was working as a software engineer, as many people would expect after having a computer science degree. And I got to have kind of every role in technology for a long time. I got lots of great opportunities, both from mentors, great managers, and kind of moved from software engineer through different facets like program management and product management, and ultimately was CTO at the company I was working at. So I kind of got the full kind of landscape of technology experience, which was really, really great. And then I wanted to go back to your first question. I wanted to go back to managing businesses, and I really wanted to be able to leverage my knowledge of technology and how to, how to build products into managing a business. So again, got some great opportunities. Just first, GM a business, and then was COO at a couple businesses, and then ultimately got the opportunity to be CEO at bankrate.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then currently now into my CEO role at RocketReach.
Wow. So I can see the business side background, and obviously you have the tech side. What attracted you to RocketReach, like from some of your previous things, just in general? I mean, like, because I know you're doing some different things, but if you can recall, like, what was that first thing that you were like, okay, I have to be a part of this?
Yes, I think the first thing I realized was it was clear that the business and the people in the business were super product focused
Wow.
and really focused on quality.
Mm-hmm.
We have a firm belief in our business that quality will ultimately win the space. We're ultimately a data business, and the quality of that data will define how well our customers can succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at first glance, when I first took a look at the product, I was amazed at the quality of the business and the breadth of the quality within the data.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met the two founders, and they're great, and they clearly had a super long-term focus
Mm-hmm.
within the business on building a great product for their customers. And I think that's the foundation of any business that you want to build in the long term, is you have to have that foundation of a great product at the core.
Wow. And we will go further into this product and the types of clients you're serving. But before we do that, let's spend a little bit more time talking about the business side of things. So how does okay, first off, great product. So we know you had a great product. So that's one of the things. And I would argue from your early days of business, the really early ones, like that's a must right there. If I'm recruiting you, that's a must. If the product isn't there, Scott doesn't want any part of it. But let's go into like the maybe the company culture, or like some of those other things about the business overall that you just felt like, this is something special.
Yeah, I think there's three cultural facets of a business that are super important to me, and I found that they were super important at RocketReach as well when I first got introduced to the business. First is being very data driven, and anytime you have two founders who are kind of engineering focused and product focused, they're generally going to be very data driven about their decisions,
Mm-hmm.
and this was definitely like a super example of that. So I think it's super important, especially today, to be super data driven in your decisions. I think, decades ago, I think a lot of decisions had to be made with kind of gut and intuition, because they just didn't have the data available or the tools and the facilities to be able to make a lot of data driven decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, obviously, you have to be super data driven. I think that helps separate the great companies from the good companies, are the ones who can make really good decisions around data. I think the second thing for me is velocity. A lot of companies talk about this, but I really do believe that velocity it's kind of a compounding culture within the business. So the faster you're able to make decisions, hopefully based on data, the faster you'll make good decisions, and you'll make a whole bunch of bad decisions as well. But the faster you can learn on those good decisions and double down on them, and make better decisions, and make more good decisions, the faster you can kind of create the cadence of that, the better your business will be. And I think that was super important at RocketReach. And then finally, I'm a huge believer in kind of what I would call autonomous design within the culture and the teams of the company. I think part of my job is to really set out the vision and the goal for what we're doing as a business, and then get everyone aligned to that, so we're all rowing in the same direction, and then let them make the thousands and thousands of micro decisions that happen every day about where we're going. And as long as they have that kind of belief of, as long as they have the vision of where we're going, they can make really good decisions along those lines. But you have to give them the ability to make those decisions within the product, within some process, kind of within hiring. Like, these are the things that you have to be able to give your team the power to be able to do.
That's awesome. And I love when you said whenever the two co-founders are engineers, I'll tell you, and for those that have been watching this show for a long time, I throw myself under the bus on this one all the time. Our other co-founder over here, he was really data driven and obsessed with this in the beginning. And I probably cost us 2 years of growth because we'll get to that. Like right now we need, I'm the content driven one, which is probably pretty obvious, right? And he's the data driven one. So I'm like, oh, I held him back a little bit on that one. So whenever somebody makes those statements you did, I always just like to say, hey, everyone watching, Scott is right. Like data matters and the quality of data matters, and being data driven, the earlier you can be data driven, I mean, you save yourself money, time. I mean, I haven't seen yet a negative for being a data driven company. And maybe it exists out there, but I haven't seen it yet. Like, I don't know. I just haven't seen it because the tools that are out there and the other things that are just available that just allow you not to waste money or time. It's a thing. I mean, you can test more, you can, any other thing that you can say you can really do if you have the data. So again, I just had to pick on myself for that one, Scott. So let's get into the product. So let's get into the core of what you're doing over at RocketReach. Maybe for some of those that aren't familiar with the company yet, just tell us a little bit more about the company and the core products.
Yeah, I mean, the core of what we do is really provide contact info for 400 million professionals in the world and 17 million companies. So, I think what we ultimately end up being is an enablement service for your teams at your company. And the big three verticals we sold most to are marketing, sales, and recruiting. Those are the big three verticals, and those three things have in common the idea that they need to go out and reach out to someone and be able to contact them, whether they're offering them a new opportunity as a potential job, or a new service as a salesperson, or like a direct B2C consumer play, and you're trying to kind of reach your target audience. And so the core of what we do is, again, is just kind of producing contact info for millions upon millions of users, and enabling teams to be able to be more efficient at what they do.
So, so for somebody that maybe has used a content provider for contact info and things like that, like in the past, so what I found is most of the people that I personally know that, or even business owners that have maybe tried something like using a service, they maybe did this like 5 or 10 years ago, and it was a bad experience, and they're like, I won't do that. It doesn't work, or it's not, or whatever. Can you kind of give us, because you've been in the space for a long time, it's just in general in tech, can you give us a flavor of like how the industry has evolved and like where you're at? Because I know the service and I know it makes sense, but I want to make sure that some of the people out there that are in those decision-making seats know the power of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the space has evolved a lot, obviously, over the last decade or so, and it started with just the ability to kind of reach out to folks, usually over email or by phone, but it was just a super inefficient process.
Yeah.
And I think the tooling that has been developed over the years has been, quite honestly, amazing. Whether it's services that can kind of send, what they call like drip email campaigns, or reach out to someone on a social network and reach out to them, multiple times. There's a lot of tooling that has happened that has enabled the outreach. And one of the missing links in those tools is the ability to actually have the contact info that's accurate to be able to do that outreach in an effective and an efficient way. And that's, that is where we live. Back to the quality point, the higher quality data you have, your team will be so much more effective and efficient at what they do on a day-to-day basis. And it really starts to compound and pile up over time, right? You save a couple hours a day, and then you're saving 10 hours a week, and then you're saving, 40 hours a month. Like, it really, really kind of builds up within your team over time, every rep that they get. And so the higher quality of data that we can provide, we know that results in your company's efficiency over time.
Talk to me a little bit more about the user experience. So what does it look like? So I'm a new company, and I'm saying, yep, I'm going to give RocketReach a try. I mean, walk me through what that user experience looks like.
Yeah, user experience is super important to us, and we focus on it similar to how we focus on quality. Because
Hmm.
having quality data is really, really great. But then if no one can access the data in an easy way, then it's kind of
So
useless to have the data. So we do focus a lot on the ease of use. And luckily, as I mentioned when I first was introduced to the product, I would say it took about 10 seconds to 15 seconds to figure out how to use the
wow.
product, which I think is super, super important. And that's because we use lots of other services. The basic way that people access the data in our service is through search.
Mhm.
And everyone uses Google, everyone uses search. They know how to use a search interface. And they've gotten good at that, right? They've gotten
Yeah.
better and better over time at being able to search in very specific ways. And our service is no different. Now we are in a vertical where you're searching for people and companies and kind of the contact info within them. And so we give you those abilities to use what we call facets internally, or
Hmm.
filters, as a way to kind of hone your search exactly on what you're looking at. But that's actually, I think it's one of the best parts of our product is when we do customer demos, we don't have to schedule a 45-minute customer demo to first like introduce you to the concepts of what the product does
Hmm.
and then talk to you about how to use our product. We literally can just kind of walk you through a couple examples. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I get it. And they used to talk about this a lot as like the aha moment.
Yeah.
Happens very quick with our product, and that's because we spend a lot of time making our interface very usable and very easy to use.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I always say that if the demo is shorter and you get it quickly, it's like then you'll be able to use it. I've sat through quite a few long demos where I'm like, all right, I need to probably grow another piece of my brain to be able to remember to use this thing. And I know if I can't use it, like how do I expect my salespeople to use it? And how do I expect and I love what you brought up about that multiplying factor of saving even an hour a day by having the right user experience, multiplying that by then, X amount of hours per month and X amount of employees or salespeople or whatever, whoever's using the tool. So I get it. And it makes a lot of sense. For the tool itself, now, if like what size of companies make sense for this? Like, is this only for enterprise, like really big companies, or is this for small business owners, or is it like middle market? I mean, give us a sense of what that looks like.
Yeah, we actually serve all those customer segments.
Hmm.
So we have tens of thousands of customers that what we call our self-serve, where
Uh,
they found the product, they really liked the quality and the breadth of our product, and
mhm.
then they bought either a monthly or annual subscription through a credit card. Um, and more recently, we've been finding a lot of customers who kind of started out that way are
Mm.
actually much larger companies behind the scenes, and we are actually hiring aggressively to fill out an enterprise sales team, because when you sell
Yeah.
to larger businesses, you have to have a lot more collateral and a lot
Mhm.
more process in the way you do it. And so we actually serve all those segments. About 90% of the S&P 500
Mhm.
has used our service at some point. So we have obviously
Wow.
lots of big companies, but then we
Mhm.
also have those thousands and thousands of small to mid-sized businesses as well, who use our service every day.
Hmm. Let's get into a little bit more. And I did hear that about you hiring. So at the end of this, I'm going to bring it up, Scott. I'm going to say, hey, if somebody's out there and they have the chops and they want to look at furthering their sales career, I'm going to give you an opportunity to plug that one at the end for sure. But
Great.
let's get into maybe some of the nuances of the product feature itself. Or the features of the
Mhm.
product itself. So like, what do you think? We know quality of data matters. We have that. What are some of the nuances of just things you can do with it?
Yeah, so I think at the very top level, I think there's three kind of guiding principles, two of which we've already talked about to our product, and we'll talk about some of the nuances below that. So first, for sure, obviously quality, as I mentioned before, is kind of priority number one in kind of
Mhm.
everything we do, because we are a data business effectively, and the quality of data is of utmost importance.
Mm.
Second is breadth, because you can have really accurate data, but if you don't have that much of it, then it's not that
Mhm.
useful as well. So we not only have to have quality, but we have to have breadth of data that is of high quality.
Mm.
And then finally, as you mentioned, the ease of use. We have to be able to make it so our customers can easily use our product on a day-to-day basis, and they're not fighting against it, right? The product is actually enabling them and helping them do their jobs better and more effectively. So those are the three guiding principles. It's underneath it all and under the covers, and this is where our technology team has done a really tremendous job. Is there's actually a really hard problem to solve, right? So we have tons and tons of different data sources, and we have to kind of merge them together to figure out what we know about people and companies. And I'm Scott Kim, and unfortunately, there are literally thousands of Scott Kims in the world, and being able to disambiguate and delineate, Scott Kim me and Scott Kim, the thousands of other Scott Kims is actually a really hard problem to solve. And so underneath the covers of it all is the core of the technology is trying to help bring together this massive amount of data and figure out who's who, which company is which company, and how do you separate them out so that it's easily understandable by someone using our product.
So what's next for RocketReach? So you mentioned you're hiring. What else is going on? Like what's next? What in your vision for the company?
Yeah, so I mean, luckily we are growing really fast right now, both as a business and as a team. So of course, to maintain that kind of torrid pace of growth, we're going to have to add a lot of team members to our team. So we are hiring across every function in the business. And as I just mentioned, we're particularly aggressively hiring in our enterprise sales organization. But we need engineers, we need product people, we need designers, we need marketing folks, we need kind of the whole group and function of a company. And then those people will be delivering on our roadmap. So we'll be delivering on products that make our product better every day. And those products ultimately will continue to drive the growth that we have in the business. And the long-term future is that I hope that we have the ability to turn our product into the standard for how people get contact into for folks, and that's our goal.
That's awesome. So, Scott, I have to say you have an unfair advantage over at RocketReach, and the reason is because your product is the contact info. I mean, let me just guess that you might have the infrastructure for your sales team to grow in the data for them to contact people, right? Will you be using your own product on this?
Of course, both in our recruiting team and our sales team and our marketing team, we absolutely dog food our own product. And that's part of the way we make it better every day is every time we run into a problem, we show it to our technology and product teams and they fix it. So
I was thinking about that as we're doing this interview. I'm like, wait a minute. So of course quality of data matters for them. They need good data too. How are they going to grow also?
Yeah, we're the first and the most aggressive beta testers that we've ever had, our own team, which I think is important in a company like ours. So we regularly have things like bug fests and other things where our team is pointed inwardly at our own product, and we're going to go find the problems in our product before any customer ever sees them, so we can fix them before we release these products into the world.
That's awesome, Scott. I just had to bring out the obvious for everyone on that one. I'm like, wait a minute. Oh man. So Scott, I will say it's been really a pleasure having you on the show today and learning more about RocketReach and what you and your team are doing, and wishing you much continued success. But before we go, if somebody is watching this and they want to learn more about RocketReach for their businesses, or maybe somebody's out there and they're a sales professional, they want to further that sales career. I mean, what's the best way for people to follow up and to learn more?
Yeah, definitely go to RocketReach.co. That's the first and foremost. If you're interested in buying the service, that's obviously you can test out the service for free at the beginning, and then after you like the product, you can always, of course, buy through our sales service checkout or through our enterprise sales team. If you're a candidate, go to RocketReach.co and go to the hiring link. We'll have all of our jobs there, and that list is kind of ever growing at this point. So it'd be great to have new team members join the team.
That's awesome. Well, Scott, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and that solid entrepreneurial background. I love it. Love to see the way you grew up and what you're doing now with as at RocketReach running the company. And I'm excited to just hear more things and watch you, the company, grow. Your teams grow. This is going to be great for me. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. Hope you had some fun. Hope you learned some things. If you did, don't forget, hit that subscribe button. Love for you to be a return viewer. Have more great guests like Scott coming up for you, and we don't want you to miss anything. And Scott, thanks again for coming on the show. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, Adam. Really enjoyed it.